Not being accepted into something just because of your race? Affirmative action was first introduced by President Kennedy in 1961. Affirmative action was supposed to reduce racial discrimination among the races by keeping an equal amount of race employed. However, that is not the case. Affirmative action causes higher unemployment rates. According to Bureau Labor of Statistics, the unemployment rate for all 50 states is 6.6%. The unemployment rate for the 7 states that have banned affirmative action is 6.43%. The difference between the two is 0.17%. Now, that may not seem like a lot, but it can be the difference between supporting a family and having food than not being able to survive. The difference between living on the streets and relying only on change to buy food. The difference between life and death. Affirmative action could also have an effect on employment. It could prevent the best person from getting the job. For example, you apply for a job, you ace your interview, and you know there's no way you're not going to get hired. But you find out that that employer has too much of your race. That employer has to turn you down just because of your race, all because they don't want to cause of discrimination. A white woman named Abigail Fisher was very frustrated when she went through a similar situation. Abigail Fisher in 2008 was denied to the University of Texas in Austin. Abigail filed and sued against the university because she claimed she was racially discriminated. This is relevant because it shows how affirmative action isn't fair to everyone. Abigail didn't get accepted into the university. Imagine how many people get denied for jobs every day. What if this person had a degree and they didn't get accepted? Those people must feel so betrayed and angry. According to Gale opposing viewpoints, standard quotas were banned after 1978 when admission officers wouldn't accept a white male student because he was white. Instead, if they accepted a black student, they could reach their quota and not have racial discrimination. This is unfair to the people who didn't get those jobs because now they can't get into their studies quicker and become more successful in life. Affirmative action is also trying to demolish discrimination, but it's creating more. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Supreme Court recognized that affirmative action racial classification may promote notions of racial inferiority. For example, some employers are suspicious that minority graduates may have only graduated because of their race. This is unfair to the people who have worked hard to receive the ultimate goal of graduating and getting to the next step in their life. Affirmative action seems like it's getting rid of discrimination, but it's currently creating more, and people are frustrated. If saving your family all depended on your race to get a job, how do you think you would feel to be racially discriminated if you didn't get that job? Affirmative action is taking away opportunities for the United States of America and destroying lives.
My opponent may say that because of affirmative action, some very qualified people who are white or male, who are part of the majorities, may lose a job option because of affirmative action giving it to a minority who's brought in to even out the work field. But I disagree. Because if this person is so very qualified, as you say, will they not get this job somewhere else in the work field? According to an article by Alex K. Rich and Cheryl Barassa, 16% of African Americans hold positions of expertise, and less than 3% of federal contracts go to women-owned firms. These are shockingly low numbers, showing that majorities have a way higher chance of getting a job compared to a minority. And this person will not just be brought into the work field, because as you said, their application will be taken into mind, and they must be knowledgeable in this topic. Therefore, while my opponent may say that qualified workers who are white or male or part of the majorities may lose a chance because of the minorities, must not see that because of affirmative action, these people are getting this chance because minorities have such a low chance compared to majorities.
We have all heard about Martin Luther King Jr. and his strive for equality. Well, affirmative action mimics the same goals. America needs affirmative action to assume the position as the basis for discarding the derogatory comments or mindsets of employers and college admission consultants. Affirmative action is focused on equality of all people through balance and is used to better the financial state of minorities and women. Affirmative action promotes equality, improves the lives of many people, and gives minorities an equal chance to success. Equality should be a top priority, which affirmative action promotes. Some might assume that a weakened workplace is the result of being forced to hire otherwise unqualified minorities and women. I have the conviction that practicing equality doesn't mean giving up quality, and that the widened spectrum of diversities allows people to benefit from others' uniqueness. The absence of affirmative action would lead minorities in the direction of financial chaos. After dismissing the idea of affirmative action, a school of the name UC Berkeley saw an instant increase in the amount of Asian Americans attending, which barely left any room for other ethnicities. So, a well-deserving minority could be stripped of their right for an education for the sole reason of their racial background. My team believes that this shouldn't happen in today's society, as racism is supposed to be a thing of the past. Affirmative action improves the lives of an abundance of people. Not only does it improve the lives of minorities, for the progression is shared amongst the Caucasians in the same workplace or educational environment as them. This is because the Caucasians have the privilege of experiencing new perspectives. Minorities that wouldn't acquire their current job without the support of affirmative action wouldn't lead as much of a successful life, especially if they would like to acquire a highly recognized profession. Additionally, students admitted to schools through affirmative action usually go on to lead triumphant careers, according to Richard Sander, a UCLA law professor and economist, in participation with Stuart Taylor Jr., a legal journalist and author. So, it is initially affirmative action that leads minorities in the right direction for their individual career. The wonderful regulation of affirmative action gives minorities and women an equal chance against Caucasian males, or the predominant human in the workplace. Some may believe that racism and sexism is an irrelevant topic to the present financial state, but I disagree. As mentioned before, according to an article written by Alex K. Rich and Cheryl Barasa, only 16% of African Americans hold positions of expertise, and less than 3% of all federal contracts go to firms owned by women. Obviously, discrimination is still a problem today, but might not seem a great deal because it's occasionally unintentional. Lyndon Johnson stated that during his speech to Howard University in 1965 on the topic of affirmative action, "You do not take a man who for years has been hobbled by chains, liberate him, bring him to the starting line of a race, saying, 'You are free to compete with all the others,' and still justly believe you have been completely fair." In other words, it cannot be expected that a person precedently discriminated against could experience an automatic halt to their contempt. Thinking otherwise is comparable to believing that separate but equal is close enough to equality. Therefore, a guideline or affirmative action should be put in place to ensure fairness. Overall, the reason for affirmative action is to reach a state of equality and to support America's growing number of minorities. It is highly unlikely that we will ever be able to create a society in which discrimination has completely come to a conclusion. Until those circumstances are possible, minorities deserve affirmative action.
My opponent says that without affirmative action, minorities wouldn't have the jobs they do today because they wouldn't have the opportunity. I disagree because a company here in Iowa called Rockwell Collins does not have affirmative action policies. My dad works there and he had to make a project with 10 people and he had to decide who to hire for that project they were working on. Of his 10, only 3 were white and male, and the remaining 7 were males and females from India, Malaysia, Sudan, Cuba, and the Philippines, and that's racial and cultural diversity if I've ever heard of it. This happened without the help of affirmative action, so if affirmative action is needed, what is it doing here? It isn't needed, what is it doing here? He asked Human Resources, how do I decide who to hire? And their answer was consistent and clear. Hire the best person for the job, as it should be. But with affirmative action, they're bringing race into it, which shouldn't have to do with whether you get a job or not. Therefore, affirmative action is not needed to provide cultural and diversity and to provide job opportunities because they're already being provided without the help of affirmative action.